Welcome to Streaming Into the Void, where we discuss all the streaming news for the week ending March 29th, 2024. I'm Kim Hollis, and I'm one of the Elite Eight.
Yeah, you are.
With me are Tim Bridey, content creator and gamer, ready for opening day.
And here's the pitch, and the season's over.
Oh, no. I feel you, buddy. Also, David Mumpower, author of Behind the Ride and streaming media analyst, who is also one of the Elite Eight. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, we are.
And the podcast is produced and edited by Raul Buriel, who's got some advice.
If anyone ever asks you to organize a conference, repeat after me, no.
I think that's good advice for everyone.
Apparently, I'm also one of the Elite Eight.
That's right. Illinois basketball, Tennessee basketball, and Oregon State women's basketball are all crushing this year. Could not have worked better for us this March.
This week, it's another lightning round. The NFL and NBC were so happy with the success of last season's NFL wildcard game that was streamed exclusively on Peacock. They're doing it again. Peacock will be the only place to see the NFL's Friday night opening weekend game on September 6th. The game will be played in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Sure, why not? This makes about as much sense as anything else. Have they even announced who's playing yet?
Well, it's the Americans versus the Americans, but it is not Carnival, and I do have a couple of predictions here. One, there's going to be at least one player who thinks that they can use a betting app when they're in Brazil and safely get away with it, but they won't. And two, if there aren't, incidents that week, 9 months later, there will be stories and allegations about what happened during this event. Oh my goodness, this is a bad idea, and I am so here for it. This is a reality series. This right here.
And I mentioned glibly before we started recording the podcast that, of course, the NFL isn't as much happy with the success of last season's wildcard game on Peacock as much as they are happy with the bagfuls of money they're going to get for this broadcast.
That's pretty much the negotiation. Hey, can we have this on Peacock? Oh, absolutely not. Hey, can you have $110 million and we have this game on Peacock? We have an agreement.
Audible and Amazon MGM Studios have made a deal to develop TV series based on the audiobook giant's original content.
How are they not doing this already? They're both owned by Amazon.
Seriously, this is like when I make a Target online order and then Kim tells me afterward that she had a Target gift card. Let's just pay attention to what we own, okay?
I'm shocked that Amazon's not making series based on Zappos.
Somebody tell Amazon they've got MGM Plus, too.
That's not real.
It's as real as Freevee, Tim.
ESPN is building integration into its app for regional sports networks.
Evidently, RSNs that play ball with ESPN will have their content available on the ESPN app, so you don't have to go hunting for those separate apps elsewhere. It really does make sense for everyone involved.
Yeah, Bob Iger had indicated that ESPN will just go wherever the viewers are for the next few years, and this is the latest sign of that. It could lead to future confusion about the one true home for ESPN, but it's a necessary step in a broken media environment because there are a lot of stragglers out there, and you can't just leave them behind.
Can I also place bets in that same app? Because someone on ESPN told me that they are risk-free.
Oh, my God.
Oh, no. It was a joke, Tim. Anytime you give Rece Davis that look, he's joking.
Sticking with Disney's streaming platforms, Hulu and Disney Plus are merging.
Hadn't this already happened? How is this news?
Oh, no. Technically, that is incorrect, says Comic Book Guy. Hulu was in beta on Disney Plus as the company gave its subscribers, an opportunity to tweak the age settings because, it's awkward. They're hopefully preventing kids from watching things like, Harlots on Hulu via the Disney Plus app. So, just in case the Bluey recommendations got screwy, they had set it up for a 3-month period where people could adjust the settings. Now that's gone. It's basically the same thing. So while you're going to pay 2 bills for Hulu and Disney Plus for the foreseeable foreseeable future, presuming you don't have the Disney Bundle app, two services now coexist. And coexisting always goes great in wrestling, doesn't it, Tim?
It has a 100% success rate.
Until someone super kicks someone through a plate glass window, yes. Disney had to do this. This was the right play for them, but we're going to see over the next few months just how seamless the transition is.
To be fair, something like this has already existed internationally on Disney Plus for some time, as Hulu is basically just Stars with a different name. And if you're anywhere other than in the United States and you have Disney Plus, you have Stars, which is, once again, Hulu by another name. When I was in Canada with my family last year and my daughter pulled up Disney Plus, to which we're subscribed, we got Canadian Disney Plus. She then promptly proceeded to binge every episode of Family Guy.
It was revealed in a lawsuit this week that Facebook killed their struggling Facebook Watch streaming service in order to appease Netflix, who was seeking advertising partners.
It was a mercy kill.
Yeah, this is a true story. I had to check to make sure that Facebook Watch was what I thought it was, or something like that. Anyway, it was, and Ruggles right. Facebook Watch was poorly named because nobody was watching it.
Yeah, the only significant show on Facebook Watch was the Jada Pinkett Smith show, Red Table Talk. And when that one went off the rails, it was done that day.
And it was another bad week for Paramount as S&P cut the studio's credit rating to junk.
S&P did point out that one potential saving grace for Paramount was the potential for increased ARPU, or average revenue per user, for Paramount Plus, demonstrating that the future for Hollywood is streaming. But you have to go through bad times to get to profitability. In order to achieve that profitability, Paramount's been gradually cutting costs at Paramount Plus. This week, as part of that cost cutting, they removed 10 Nickelodeon titles from the streamer, including 2 reboots, Big Nate and Rugrats, shows made exclusively for Paramount Plus. How that saves them money remains unclear. Presumably, they'll license the content to Netflix, and I suppose there's more value in licensing it to Netflix if it's exclusive. Because as Deadline points out, kids and family content consistently ranks amongst the most watched and rewatched programming on Paramount Plus. And removing some of that content from the streamer feels like they're shooting themselves in the foot.
It's also poorly timed. We should mention the fact that Blue's Clues is one of the shows, and Steve from Blue's Clues is thus far the person who has handled the quiet on the set controversy the best. He is posting the occasional TikTok wherein he just basically acts like he's on the show and he's listening to people talk about how horrible they're feeling, knowing that a part of their childhood watching Nickelodeon has been destroyed by all of these allegations, some of which are confirmed facts about atrocities happening. This was a time they could have reinvented Blue's Clues a little bit and gotten a surge, and instead they've done this. But we also know Paramount's in dire financial straits, so they're doing what they can. The Super Bowl broadcast was a success for them, though. We actually learned this week that the streaming numbers actually led to better churn rates than they'd expected and more signups than they'd expected. So there's that. It's just unfortunate. Our podcast is based on streaming. Streaming is the part of Paramount that is going swimmingly. I mean, it really is. But they're taking all kinds of hits because the rest of Paramount is just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it was just a stroke of bad luck that just as streaming executive Domenic DiMeglio was crowing about how successful their marketing strategy off the Super Bowl was, the S&P news dropped. And now the only thing anyone's talking about is how Paramount has a junk credit rating. No one cares about the fact that its streaming service is actually doing quite well. In fact, the only news we ever get about their streaming service these days is how Paramount should just kill Paramount Plus. But really, if that's what they do, what is there left for Paramount?
Okay, Tim, before we talk about the ratings, there is box office to talk about this weekend.
Yeah, if your box office is struggling, just throw out some giant monsters and make them fight. We have Godzilla X Kong. I guess it's not Godzilla versus Kong. It's not Godzilla and Kong. It's Godzilla X Kong. The New Empire coming in with $37 million on Friday, and that's outstanding.
That is so far beyond my greatest expectation, truly. I had no expectations for this film, but
Right?
shows what I know.
Yeah, we did have in December that Godzilla -1, which was not a domestic release. That was released by Toho, the Japanese studio, and did pretty well for itself. And I kind of wish they had put that out in more theaters because I think that might have even done more. Friends who saw that said it was one of the best movies of the year. But here you have the latest MonsterVerse from Warner Brothers, and that's quite good. I mean, it is Easter weekend, so Sunday's usually deflated. Estimates all over the place, but I think 75, 80 million is about where it should end up for the weekend.
I think that's a reasonable expectation at this point because it actually made $31.2 million on Friday plus the Thursday box office, which means it's not as front-loaded as I thought it might have been, or at least I worried it might have been. This is just a refreshing thing for us to say. This is an unqualified blockbuster, and God knows we need those right now.
Yep, always nice to talk about some good news because I don't see too much on the April slate that are going to really break out. Happy to see that this is good for at least one weekend and feels like it definitely came out of nowhere with this solid number.
Okay, awesome. Let's move on to the ratings.
Okay, we have the Nielsen streaming ratings for Monday, February 26th to Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. I don't know if there's too much here this week either, but we have a couple things to definitely talk about. The top show on originals is, of course, still Love is Blind, another 2.1 billion minutes for 81 total episodes. 2 more episodes were added as part of its 6th season on the 28th. There is 1 more episode to be added March 6th, and then the reunion finale, March 13th. So it should drop off from here. I mean, I know we've always seen this show every time it adds a new season, but it's never really cracked 2 billion. So I wonder if there's just something about this season that is making people watch it more than the others, or it's just been around so long. There's so many episodes. People are just watching the whole thing now. I have no idea. Second is the show that was on top last week, Avatar: The Last Airbender, another 1.9 billion minutes for 8 episodes for the first full week of its season. So that's actually a really decent hold.
And yet we already know that this series is only going to go 3 seasons. I think Netflix maybe is just hedging their bets. Also, the fact that they have a very young cast that's going to grow up very quickly. We've seen this with Stranger Things, where at this point, the Hawkins kids are now more like the Hawkins college crew. So yeah, that I think Netflix is just realizing that when you have a show about kids, it's very time limited.
Yeah, this is, of course, the live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation. But yeah, they only have so long to really make the show before everyone starts looking too goofy in their role. Returning in third is Wrong Side of the Tracks, 621 million minutes viewed for 24 episodes. We've seen this before. It is a Spanish drama series. The 3rd season that actually aired in Spain in 2023 just arrived on Netflix in time for this ratings week. So here it is once again. 4th, American Conspiracy: The Octopus Murders, 513 million minutes for 4 episodes. Moving on. Okay, in 5th, Shogun from Hulu, 513 million minutes for 3 episodes. I guess that's okay just for 3 episodes and being not a Netflix show, but I was told this show was doing way better than that.
So Disney's announcement was that Shogun had claimed 9 million views globally. And it's the globally part that matters because this is only taking into account American audiences. The other thing to note here is this is 3 episodes. The show only debuted with 2, which means that it apparently we've got a date confusion here about what this should include versus what it does include. So I had a hard time extrapolating what I think this means for next week and future weeks. But the one thing we can say for sure is it's solidly in the middle of the ratings, which is really, really good for Hulu. And we expect it's going to continue at least in a similar level to this, just as we would expect only the Murders in the Building to do, because Shogun's reviews are just absolutely rapturous.
Okay, yeah, looking at Wikipedia, the first 2 episodes did premiere on the 27th, and then it's the next one, episode 3, March 5th. So that really shouldn't be counted in these ratings. I mean, we can only assume it's just a typo by Nielsen, which wouldn't be the first time and certainly won't be the last time. But being Tuesday releases, that does mean it's most of the week on these ratings. But yeah, if it's just 2 episodes, then I'm actually much happier with that number.
And that's the thing. I don't know based on how Nielsen does this because they've, for no apparent reason, just created confusion with their own set of streaming ratings. And they do things like this a lot, and it drives us crazy. This should only be 2 episodes. So if it's typo, this is solid performance. Mm-hmm. If it's not a typo, I don't know what that means, and shouldn't it have been on here last week? So I don't know.
All right, so that's something to watch over the next few weeks then. It is a weekly release from here. It's still airing now, actually, through April. There will be 10 episodes in the entire series. So actually, that could hang around then for a month or two.
Yeah, I think we're going to have this conversation for the next 2 months. The question is whether or not we're having it weekly because, we do have that discrepancy.
Oh, yes. Right. In sixth, The Tourist, 505 million minutes from Netflix. We've talked about this a couple times now, but finally, the second season arrived on Netflix on the 29th. So here it gets the bump I predicted when it appeared the first time in the beginning of February's ratings. Formula One, Drive to Survive. We saw that arrive last week for its most recent season, 395 million minutes for 60 episodes in seventh.
Yeah, the F1 number kind of explains some stuff. A couple of years ago, the story came out that Netflix was really interested in acquiring the rights to F1 streaming. And I don't mean a show, I mean like the actual races themselves. And they were unable to do that. But given the success of this series on streaming, you can understand why, because there is proof of concept. I mean, this is 400 million minutes. That's really, really good for a show of this variety.
When you bring that up, I'm actually surprised that racing, if you don't know, still bigger than you think. But yes, I'm actually surprised they haven't gotten the rights to at least something, or at least any of the streaming services, really.
Yeah, as an Atlanta Braves fan, I've been forced to care about Formula One because we have the same ownership group, which means when Formula One is losing money, it causes the Braves to cut their budget. No joke.
Halo from Paramount Plus still holding on, 357 million minutes for 14 episodes. One Day has been here quite some time now, 334 million minutes from Netflix, 14 episodes. And new in 10th is Furies. I had to double check that it wasn't Furries, but no, it's Furies, 257 million minutes for 8 episodes. This is a French action series that premiered on March 1st. Just a weekend number from Netflix.
The one that jumps off the page at me really is Halo. We're not going to relitigate that, but I do want to say just how strong a showing this is, and it's still got another month that we'll see it on the charts. And Raul mentioned earlier, this is one of the hits of Paramount Plus, and you can really see that in the data because it is unusual for Paramount Plus programs that are new to actually show up on originals. We see some of their catalog stuff on acquired, but Halo has pretty much been here from the beginning, which just shows the popularity of the brand. And Raul last week was predicting we might see a spinoff at some point. I think he's onto something because this justifies it.
Don't encourage them.
I mean, it also would cost money, which Paramount doesn't have.
If Fallout doesn't do way better than this, I will be very disappointed. Movies is led by Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, 685 million minutes, exclusively on Max, after arriving on February 27th. So it took the entire week, but hey, you did it. Good job, Max. You got the top movie for the week.
That is a massive number considering what we're dealing with here. A movie that honestly did not do well at the box office. That was a sequel to another movie that
did do very well at the box office.
Yeah. In a franchise that at this point is now coming to an end on a streaming service that very few people actually watch.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind is we still have some confusion about what happened with Blue Beetle, as part of it was Thanksgiving and Nielsen just didn't bother to post ratings that week. But Aquaman's performance is basically the first 2 weeks of Blue Beetle on the charts combined. So this is pretty solid. Tim, you were pointing out that Aquaman recently had a really, really strong week, but the explanation for that was it was on Netflix, which did all the heavy lifting. So it's not an apples to apples thing. Personally, when I look at this, I see the Marvels. I mean, that's just what's going through my head, where I think it's a 1 week number and it's going to flame out almost entirely.
We won't see it'll be here next week and then never again until it shows up on Netflix, conveniently enough.
We're in the phase right now where they started all over again with their DC movie universe, whatever they're calling it now. And this was the last vestige of the old thing. And we probably won't get, the next one on streaming until 2025. So all in all, I don't consider this anything other than a mediocre number. But if you two disagree, I fully understand.
For just being Max, I'll call it a win for 1 week. Again, it's going to collapse from here. I bet we'll see it again next week, and then it won't appear again.
And I'm saying you two because the instant we mentioned DC, Kim completely tuned out. She hates these things.
Okay, Tyler Perry's Mea Culpa is still second, 550 million minutes. We saw that topped the chart last week. Dune, one last hurrah while it's on Netflix, 529 million minutes. Again, Dune 2 actually dropped during the Friday of this week on March 1st. So I'm curious to see if there's any impact next week once it's no longer on Netflix. New and fourth, Code 8 Part 2, 438 million minutes on Netflix. I was going to ask if you even remember Code 8 Part 1, and it turns out we didn't, but Netflix viewers did, because that actually sneaks into 10th from 2019, 214 million minutes.
I stand by my assertion that that movie, in fact, did not exist until they filmed Code 8 Part 2 and realized, oh, wait, we need a Part 1.
Yeah, this is the Amell brothers, I guess, doing like things.
It's a world where superpowers are outlawed. And so if you want to be a hero, you have to be a criminal.
Of course.
Yeah, it is the ML brothers. You're right. I remember talking about part 2 and what's new.
Yeah, right. Because it's like, wait, when was part 1? And it does predate the podcast, but we had literally never heard of it prior.
Nope.
Ruby Gilman, Teenage Kraken, 400 million minutes in 5th from Netflix. Moana up to 377 million minutes from Disney Plus. So that's getting a bump. When was Moana Part 2 announced?
I looked at this the other day. The timeline isn't quite right. It was about 3 weeks before that, but it has renewed interest in the brand. So I think that's a lot of it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because it's been a stronger number than we've seen in quite some time. The Super Mario Brothers movie is 7th, 345 million minutes from Netflix. New and 8th, Spaceman, 300 million minutes. This is the Adam Sandler drama, it turns out, which I was surprised to double check that. Wait, it's not Goofy. It is a science fiction movie.
It's been described to me as tedious, which I think is the uniform description for almost any Adam Sandler project.
Drama or comedy, yes. Encanto is 9th from Disney Plus, 239 million minutes. And we mentioned the aforementioned Code 8, Part 1, 214 million minutes in 10th. Acquired is 9 shows we have seen before, led once again by Bluey, about 1.1 billion minutes, so no surprise there. Our new show for the week is Brooklyn Nine-Nine in 3rd, 847 million minutes from Netflix and Peacock. The first 4 seasons of it showed up on Netflix on February 26th, and that's why it's here.
Yeah, and I can confirm, because we've been watching Three Body Problem. I mean, it's been my background television for a while now. They are begging me to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and that's a month down the road, so I'm sure it was hyped to all get out.
God help us all. When Peacock decides to give up The Office and return it to Netflix, that number is going to be massive.
Right?
It'll break the charts. Suddenly it'll be 1 billion minutes again, and everyone will be like, oh, right, I forgot about The Office.
The Office is back. Wow, I wonder where it's been all these years.
Yes.
If you are in the witness protection program, just do a reality show on Peacock. They will never find you.
It is just, it astounds me how these shows, once Netflix puts it on there, it's back on these lists. But mostly that's because of just how Nielsen accumulates its data. But it is really remarkable how we are going from the studios saying, why should we give Netflix all our money for our shows? We're going to start our own streaming service with our shows and hookers and blackjack. And then they realize, wait, we're not making any money. Let's just license these to Netflix again and get some of that money back.
I would venture to suggest that this is a new form of advertising. This is an opportunity for a streaming service like Peacock to maybe put a show on another streamer, a more, say, successful streamer like Netflix for a period of time, 3 months, 6 months, and then take it back exclusively to their streamer and see if it can carry over some of those viewers back home and make money doing it in the meantime. They're not paying Netflix to show Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Netflix is paying them to show Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Elsewhere on originals, I actually meant to say 8 shows we've seen before, because sneaking back in to 9th is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, this one's the animated one, credited to Netflix and Paramount, 575 million minutes for 63 episodes. So I guess once people watched the live action show on Netflix, and they went ahead and watched the animated one, which actually goes back to the mid-2000s.
I looked at this number the other day and my mind was blown. I mean, this is like a really staggering comeback for this. And it just shows Netflix doing a live action version was absolutely brilliant. It is going to be beneficial to Netflix in multiple ways for this. I mean, it has reinvented a catalog title. It has.
Yeah, this was actually the original Nickelodeon show when it aired. And then, of course, it's on Paramount Plus, being a Nickelodeon property. That checks out. It's still there, but it's also been on Netflix. And yeah, I'm actually, now that I'm seeing this happen, I was like, it makes complete sense that it's here.
And to Raul's point, you know, it's a Paramount brand. So Netflix is doing the heavy lifting to create more awareness for a Paramount brand. So that's win-win. They're paying for you and marketing for you. Who wouldn't take that deal?
Yeah, so an interesting week in ratings. I think I'm most curious to see what happened with Shogun over the course of the next month or two. And then we'll watch the fall of Aquaman on the movies chart. And who knows, maybe we see the rise of Avatar on the acquired chart as well over the next couple weeks.
In our green lights and cancellations this week, an HBO spokesman wants us to know that HBO and Sam Levinson remain committed to making an exceptional third season of Euphoria.
This announcement was in light of production delays for the show. Presumably, Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav wants to cut costs. Toss in Sam Levinson's poor track record given the flop of his other HBO show, The Idol, and fans are certainly concerned. Then again, if you pitch a show starring Zendaya and Sydney Sweeney to any other executive at any other studio in the world, that beeping sound you'll hear would be the money truck showing up at your door. Leave it to Zaz to this up.
Yeah, and I was actually going to mention The Idol if you hadn't, because it really underscores how significant the failure of that series was, because they did have a plan in place. Nobody had any idea that Sydney Sweeney would blow up the way she has. I mean, her career has a straight upward trajectory right now. She's coming out of Madam Web somehow better than she had been, which is impossible. So if you can do that, you're already a made woman. She isn't in a hurry to do this. And then we have Zendaya, who apparently is going to go ahead and do Spider-Man 4 at some point in 2024, 2025. And Sony is desperate to make that happen because they need a hit right now. They've lost their window on this, and if they'd had The Idol, they could have just pushed up The Idol and gone ahead and said, but look, we've got the new show that you like, as much as Euphoria. Well, that didn't happen, so they have this blank canvas, and they're having to apologize for why they have an empty slate and very little hope in the short term. At this point, we might not see new episodes of Euphoria until 2026. I might be hyperbolic there, I don't know, but I've kind of looked at the timelines, and if one of them starts filming Spider-Man 4 and the other one does the project she's been offered, I don't think that's unreasonable, because it's a 3 or 4 month shoot and they're saying they've got the scripts ready. I don't even know if that's the case. There is a distinct possibility Euphoria is already done.
The production delays blamed on the strike, and actually one of the cast members actually has passed away.
Yes, the very important character was a DJ.
Yeah, but I think one of the main things is that the prices of, well, not just Zendaya, but Sydney Sweeney and also Jacob Elordi went way up, and they did not have them locked down for another season.
At this point, I'd say they'd be an asset at any price. And I appreciate that you are a studio in trouble and you are trying to contain costs, but this is an opportunity you cannot pass up.
At this point, the reality is the people who decide on what happens next with Euphoria may not be the people in charge of Warner Brothers Discovery right now, because, Raul, I don't think we were ready to talk about this yet, but we'll go ahead and just throw it out as a little tidbit. April 8th, or the last day of April, that's when we think that Warner Brothers Discovery can merge, sell, whatever they're going to do. At that point, it becomes a much different conversation. So this delay basically kicks the can down the road until Warner Brothers Discovery exists in a new form. Isn't that fair to say?
Yeah, things are about to get wild out there in Hollywood, even more wild than before. Another thing that we have to factor in here is that Warner Bros. Discovery is not the company producing Euphoria. The company producing Euphoria is the same one that produced the smash hit success Beef on Netflix. That is A24. This is right now a bit of a shoving match between the company doing the production and the company writing the checks, where one says, look, could you make it a little bit cheaper? And the other one's saying, no, man, we've got a good show here, and if you don't want it, we'll find someone else who does.
That's an excellent point, and it actually reminds me of an entirely different thing, but it's whenever the Simpsons voice cast threatens to go on strike, you realize just how irreplaceable they are. There are some people who have the power they have because they've earned it and they deserve it, and the people at the top of the cast of Euphoria, they didn't get famous by accident, and you have to pay them that way. And Zaslav just doesn't like anything that involves money.
Seth Rogen is producing a comedy series for Apple TV Plus called The Studio, about a studio struggling with the move to streaming. The cast includes Kathryn O'Hara, Hahn, Ike Barinholtz, and Chase Sui Wonders.
That's Celebrity Jeopardy champion Ike Barinholtz.
That's right.
First Celebrity Jeopardy contestant to ever enter the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions.
Wow.
He even won a game, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I will point out that Rachel Bloom and Paul Reiser did something similar with Reboot on Hulu, which was unceremoniously canceled after one season, despite, in my opinion, being a really good show. Hopefully this one does a little bit better on Apple TV Plus.
That cast, though, Catherine O'Hara and Kathryn Hahn, they don't have to say anything, and I'm already laughing.
Yep. Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are in talks to reprise their roles in Freaky Friday 2. There's no indication if it's going straight to streaming on Disney Plus or not, but come on.
Hocus Pocus 2 went to Disney Plus, and this one will as well.
No, it won't.
Yeah, it will not. It will go to theaters.
And I cannot believe we have reached a time where Lindsay Lohan is welcome back at Disney. Life comes at you slow sometimes, not fast.
Yes. And in Hulu news, which is now also Disney Plus news, apparently, the detective whodunit Death and Other Details starring Mandy Patinkin is done after one season.
I don't know that I've ever seen such a disjointed series in my life. It had no idea what it wanted to be. I didn't want a second season as much as I wanted someone to rewrite the first season so that it made sense.
Claire Danes is reuniting with Howard Gordon, her collaborator on Showtime's Homeland, for a new series on Netflix. In Beast in Me, Danes is an author who's suffered a personal tragedy who finds the subject of her new book in the new neighbor who moves in next door. And also on Netflix, there's bad news for fans of the high school romance Heartstopper, as Olivia Colman won't be returning for season 3.
Don't be sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened.
She was only a supporting character in the cast, and there's, to my understanding, no ill will here. It is just a scheduling concern, so she's not coming back, but there will be a season 3 of this show.
And finally, proving that MGM Plus is still a thing, Alexander Ludwig is set to star in an adaptation of Earth Abides for Amazon's other streaming service.
That's not a real show. That's not a real star. That's not a real streaming service.
Do we think people at Amazon know anything about this?
For anyone who cares, it's a post-apocalyptic series about surviving after a virus kills off most of humanity.
Sure, I've never heard of anything like that before. All right, as always, we finished with what's been keeping us busy over the last week. And, well, I've just been watching a lot of basketball. Go Illini. By the time you hear this, you'll know if they're in the Final Four or not. But I'm super, super excited that they at least made the Elite Eight. We've also been continuing the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth journey, which is fantastic. It's an amazing game. The scope of it is just impossible to describe. Gorgeous, amazing, so much to do. This has been an ambitious game, and I am pretty lost in admiration for it.
There are probably legitimately like 250 songs in this game, and I am not joking or exaggerating, because yesterday I tried to find one song from a Chocobo race, and I gave up after about 200 tries.
All right, Raul, what's been keeping you busy?
First and foremost, go Beavs. By the time you're listening to this, we'll know if Oregon State University's women's basketball team is in the Final Four or not. I will tell you that on Sunday, on the day before a conference began that I happen to have spent 12 months planning, I did go to the movie theaters for the first time in, I think the last time I'd been to the movies was in 2022. I did, as I promised last week, and went to see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I have a list of movies I have watched in 2024 so far. That list is 16 movies long. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is number 1 on that list. I loved that movie as a diehard Ghostbusters fan. It gave me everything I wanted. If you're a Ghostbusters fan and you have not gone to see this movie, I would venture to say that your credentials do not check out. Go see this movie. It's great.
I'll stream it instead, just like this podcast says I should.
All right, Tim, what's been keeping you busy?
As you can sort of tell, I haven't been feeling all that great from last week's and this week's episodes. So I've mostly been sleeping when not working, but mostly the same things I've been talking about. I put several more hours into the Thaumaturge, and I'm really enjoying that. I would recommend regular price is $35 on sale. It's a bargain. Give it a couple months and you'll really enjoy the world that they build. built, and the characters and the writing is actually quite good if it's not graphically amazing in 2024, but it's well worth it. Deal or No Deal Island, it almost lost me for an episode, but then they added a little twist in the latest one that got me back. It's still enjoyable, even though it has no right to be any good at all. And I have been trying to find a strategy to win that final freaking fight in Octopath Traveler 2, and it's just kicking my butt continuously. I don't know. I have to watch YouTube videos or something to figure out how to do it, but hopefully I'll beat that. And then I do have something new I plan to get to over the next week, so I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Excellent. And David, how about you?
First, let me say, Tim, absolutely use YouTube. There were 25 moments in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth we couldn't have done without YouTube. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So Kim did not mention the thing I thought she would, which is we actually binged Three Body Problem, and it was the first time in, like, I can remember in a calendar year, we didn't even do that with Justified, where we started it and 2 days later we'd finished it. And that happened because I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It is far from perfect. You will see criticisms online, and I will actually cede the fact that most of those criticisms are based in fact. That's not really the point. The point of it is more that it is a big idea series, and it forces you to consider philosophical questions that maybe you wouldn't otherwise, and I was in love with it. This is the type of daring, ambitious television that people need, and so that means that for whatever reason, people immediately started tearing it down. There were headlines, oh, it didn't debut at number one, it's a failure. And then it was number one for the next 4 or 5 days. And then they're like, oh, it's a failure because it was only number one for 4 or 5 days. And then something else replaced it. And the something else was a Moses story, which, is going to appeal to a lot of people, given, how many people on this planet are Christians. So we've got all these reasons why it's doing really, really well. And yet people keep trying to say it's not doing well. Netflix is going to have a tough call with going ahead and authorizing future seasons because it is an extraordinarily expensive show. Their algorithms are tough on expensive shows. I don't know if we're getting more of it, but I am so here for it if we do. And I thought it was phenomenal for what it was. Kim, you've read the book. What did you think?
I agree with what you're saying. I think it's a really captivating show. Having read the book, it's more, what's the word I would look for? It is more personable, more relatable than the book is. The book is very cold, I guess would be my way of describing it. And that could be partly due to translation. I'm not sure. But yes, the series is good. I have a few little things that bother me about it, like one character basically being the equivalent of dead meat as far as I'm concerned. But it's a good series. I definitely recommend it. It's a little bit of hard sci-fi, but I don't think it's as hard as what the book is.
So I think what we're saying is we heartily recommend it, and you might not love it, but I think at worst, it'll make you think, and there just isn't enough programming these days that makes you think.
All right. Thank you for listening to Streaming Into the Void. Please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts, and we welcome your feedback. Remember that we're on social media at Streaming Void and online at streamingvoid.com. If you like what you're hearing, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/streamingvoid. Be sure to watch for us again next week.